Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to Sports Fan MK. My name is Mike Richards. Thank you for tuning in today. Today, we're going to be talking about horse racing for all you horse racing fans out there. For the month of October, it's for baseball fans because of the playoffs and the World Series. For the month of November, it's for horse racing fans because of the World Series of horse racing, the Breeders' Cup. The Breeders' Cup is always the first weekend in November, except the very first one that was ever ran, and that was 41 years ago in 1984. We're going to talk about some of the records and some of the milestones in the Breeders' Cup Classic. The first one was in 1984. That was the very first Breeders' Cup Classic. 41 years ago, when Wild Again won. Wild Again, along with Pat Day, Hall of Famer Pat Day in the saddle. Wild Again held off Gate Dancer and the favorite, Salute Old Gold, to win by a head. Wild Again paid $64.60 to win. And that was your very first Breeders' Cup Classic winner, was Wild Again with Hall of Famer Pat Day. The second race that we're going to talk about is 1987 Breeders' Cup Classic, Vernon. Vernon won that race just by a nose over Ali Sheba. And by winning that race, Vernon became Horse of the Year. It wasn't the horse in that race, though, the Breeders' Cup Classic. It was a jockey. Hall of Famer Willie Shoemaker. Willie Shoemaker, at the age of 56 years old, became the oldest jockey to win the Breeders' Cup Classic. And to this day, he is still the oldest. Willie Shoemaker's very first victory was in 1949 at Golden Gate Fields in Albany, California, when he won on Shafter 5. Shafter 5. How many of you remember that race? The third race that we're going to talk about is 1993, Argonne. Argonne won the 1993 Breeders' Cup Classic at 133 to 1. He was the longest shot ever to win the Breeders' Cup Classic. Ridden by Jerry Bailey. If you had a $2 win ticket on Argonne, you won $269.20. Argonne and Hall of Famer Jerry Bailey won the 1993 Breeders' Cup Classic at 133 to 1. And speaking of Jerry Bailey is the only jockey to win the Breeders' Cup Classic 3 years in a row. Of course, he won with Argonne, 1993. In 1994, he won with Concern. And then 1995, he won with Cigar. He is the only jockey to win 3 years in a row in the Breeders' Cup Classic. The fourth race that we're going to talk about is Tiznow. Tiznow won the Breeders' Cup Classic in 2000. He won just by a nose over Giants Causeway, making it the closest race in Breeders' Cup Classic history. And Tiznow also won in 2001, being the only horse to win the Cup 2 years in a row. With the rider, Hall of Famer Chris McCarron riding both years. Tiznow and Chris McCarron are the only horse jockey to win 2 years in a row, 2000 and 2001. That's Hall of Famer Tiznow and Hall of Famer Chris McCarron. The last Breeders' Cup Classic that we were talking about was 2009. A male didn't win that race. It was a mare and or filly, the only one to win the Breeders' Cup Classic. Her name is Zenyatta. Zenyatta is the only female horse to win the Breeders' Cup Classic. In 2009, she came back from 11 lengths back to beat all the boys. She started out 8, 9, 10 lengths back, and one by one, she passed up every single boy. And at the end, she won the race. To me, that was one of the best races in Breeders' Cup Classic history. It was 2009 Breeders' Cup Classic. She finished her career in 1901 record. The only race she lost was in 2010 when she tried to defend her title in the 2010 Breeders' Cup Classic, where she started the race 19 lengths behind everyone else, and she lost the race just by a nose to Blaine. That was the only race she lost in her 20 starts. And all 20 starts, 18 of them, she started from dead last. That was Zenyatta. Hall of Famer Zenyatta was one of the best racehorses in the world. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, you tell me which Breeders' Cup Classic race you like. You tell me who your favorite horse was. You tell me who your favorite jockey is. You tell me. This is Sports Fan MK saying thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.